My name is Barley Donahue, and I am today's service associate.
Good morning.
Reverend Matt Alsbaugh will be presenting our message this morning. Our opening words this morning are by Sherry Woodbury. Welcome, who come in friendship. Matt reads.
Can you get a wider view? Because I'm not in the picture.
We only practiced this once.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And we also were able to delay everything for the bells. Welcome who come in friendship, who long for genuine community.
May you be graciously received here as your authentic self.
Welcome who come in curiosity, full of questions or simply open.
May you embrace wonder and encounter new delights.
Welcome who come heavy with fatigue, weary from the troubles of the world or the troubles of your particular life.
May you rest and be filled in this sacred space.
Welcome who come with joy for flowing rivers and gentle breeze, for changing skies and great trees.
May the grace of the world leave a lasting imprint on you.
Welcome who come with thanks for the altruism of the earth and the gift of human care.
May your grateful heart overflow and bless those around you. Come, let us celebrate together this wondrous life. And so I just want to welcome you live from Fellowship Hall. It's our LCUUF Sunday service. Hallelujah. Our announcements run a slideshow before the service and were also sent out by email yesterday with the order of service for today. If you are new and would like to receive emails for upcoming services, please talk to a member of the welcome team or write to us at info@lakechapalauu.org. And now, a special welcome to our visitors. If you are visiting with us for the first time or have returned or reconnected after long absence, we invite you to say your name. Tell us where you're from. If you're on Zoom, use the Zoom raise hand feature and we'll ask you to unmute. If you are in the room, just raise your hand. And I don't see anyone today. Okay, let's switch to those on Zoom. Anyone new on Zoom?
I don't see anyone.
Okay, well, we heard you. Okay. And just a brief note, we offer a wide variety of services on various topics presented by our members, outside guests, as well as our minister, Reverend Matt Alsbaugh. We hope you will return to sample this variety of thought and belief. And now, a musical prelude.
But this first piece is a piano solo from a set of 4 pieces by Aaron Copland called 4 Piano Blues, and this is number 1.
Our chalice lighting words today are by Catherine St. Little flame, light the tender kindling of our souls, and soon a roaring blaze shall be a warmth and love and community. From this little spark may a fire of passion spread from heart to heart, and light our way, sweet spirit, and light our way. Now let us light our chalice with these words that we sing together. Kindle this light in celebration for the life that we share. Our opening hymn is For All That Is Our Life. Please rise in body or spirit and join us in singing. Each week, we take time to remind ourselves that we belong to a community which cares for each other. The sharing of joys, sorrows, and milestones is one way that we practice holding one another in community. We speak what is in our hearts, sharing any significant joys or sorrows in our lives, because there is power in the sharing. We will start with folks in the room to give those on Zoom a chance to type joys or sorrows into the chat to be read out loud by the Zoom host. First, let us recall the joys. Whatever you may be celebrating, whatever evokes a feeling of joy or peace for yourself or others. Are there any joys that people would like to share here in the room?
Hi, my name is Sandy, and my joy is for the gift of music that we were brought this past weekend by Michael and the amazing musicians from the orchestra. It was a phenomenal concert.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Devorah. So my youngest daughter is graduating. I think the graduation is actually next Saturday from Antioch, New England, with her master's in counseling and dance therapy, dance movement therapy. I'm so proud of her. And I am leaving this Thursday to go north. So I miss her graduation, but I'm having a party for her when I get there. And then I'm leaving and flying to Toronto in June to visit with Hyacinth. I think she's on Zoom. Hi, Hyacinth. And she and I are going to drive up and have lunch with Linda Jensen.
Oh,
They're about an hour apart, so I'm really looking forward to seeing my kids and seeing some snowbirds.
Great.
Hi, so this is a small group. My name's Ilona, and I'm just going to be a bit silly today. I actually have several family members who have birthdays this month, but I also have a kitty that I brought from Italy. She had to get European Union passport.
Oh.
I've always been proud to show it off. Those of you who had to go through just putting your animal in a car and bringing it on down don't know how much fun it was to have to go through what I had to go through. But as they always say here, everyone's life is extended in Ahik. She's now 17. She's in beautiful shape. And for all of you whose life's been extended here and your pets, enjoy.
Joni.
Hi, I'm Joni. And again, the music was wonderful, and it was great to see so many of you UUs at the orchestra. But I kept quiet last week because it was not happy sound. But this week I can say I'm very happy to say that my great-nephew was found in Las Vegas. He is 14, and he is a genius, but he has many challenges, and is at a private treatment school in Utah. And he and an older guy, of course, figured out how to escape immediately and ran away. And there was a lot of concern and a big dragnet all over in that area trying to find him and so forth. And they, of course, were found safe. His mother had gone to help the police stay focused, and she said, "I'm relieved, exhausted, and I'm really pissed." And I thought that was a very good parental response to that. But he's home, he's good.
Okay, great. Okay, one more. All right.
Good morning. I am Michael. I wasn't sure whether to have a joy or have a sadness. My wife passed this last Tuesday after about 6 years of dementia. But the joy is the response of the support group and of my adopted Mexican family. It has just been overwhelming, and I'm most appreciative. Thank you.
and are there any joys to be shared on Zoom?
Not today.
Okay. Well, now, let us voice our sorrows wherever you are, or the world may be holding that is in need of our healing and caring thoughts. Are there any sorrows that people would like to share here in the room?
Back here.
My name is Sue. I would like to light a candle of concern for my Mexican friend Lulu. Her son was killed in a gas explosion on Easter Sunday, and his son, her grandson, who is 8, is in Hospital Seville with a head injury.
Hi. Yesterday, coming from Riberas to Chapala, there was a terrible, terrible accident that you may have heard about. Yet another motorcyclist killed brutally. And I have no comment about that, except that I had to get off Facebook because, of course, everybody was in the blame game. But just rest in peace, young man, whoever you are, and I hope things improve.
Are there any sorrows to be shared on Zoom?
No, they're not.
And this candle from our care team represents the joys and sorrows we hold in the silent sanctuary of our hearts. We light this candle for all those unspoken sorrows and joys. Let us share a moment of silence in our hearts, both the sorrows and the joys that have been shared this morning.
One little detail I forgot. So today's first reading is a poem called Memory as a Hearing Aid by Tony Hoagland. And I'm going to do it. No, thank God I don't have to do it from memory, because some kind of stupid dialogue box popped up probably on the screen back there, probably trying to sell us some kind of antivirus product or some other silly thing. Let me continue reading this poem. Somewhere, someone is asking a question, and I stand squinting at the classroom with one hand cupped behind my ear, trying to figure out where that voice is coming from. I may already be an old man attempting to recall the night his hearing got misplaced. Front row center at a battle of the bands where a lot of leather-clad, second-rate musicians, amped up to dinosaur proportions, test drove their equipment through our ears. Each time the drummer threw a tantrum, the guitarists whirled and sprayed us with machine gun riffs as if they wished that they could knock us quite literally dead. We called that fun in 1970, when we weren't sure our lives were worth surviving. I'm here to tell you that they were, to tell you that many of us did, despite ourselves, though the road from there to here is paved with dead brain cells, parents shocked to silence, and squad cars painting the whole neighborhood the quaking tint and texture of jelly. Friends, we should have postmarks on our foreheads to show where we have been. We should have pointed ears or polka-dotted skin to show what we were thinking when we hot-rodded over God's front lawn and death kept blinking. But here I stand, an average-looking man, staring at a room where someone blonde in braids with a beautiful belief in answers is still asking questions. Through the silence of my dead ear, I can almost hear the future whisper to the past. It says, "This is not a test, and everybody passes."
There are many ways to be of service to LCUUF. Our time, treasure, and talents are all necessary components to a healthy fellowship. Now is the time in our service when we ask you to share the gift of treasure through pledging and donations. Instructions for payments to the fellowship are on a slide during the announcements before the service every week. For the people here at the fellowship, we'll pass a basket. If you are new here today or you are struggling to hold things together, let the basket pass you by. Your presence is more than enough and is a gift to us. And while you're considering your gifts to the fellowship, remember that each month LCUUF donates 5,000 pesos or more to an organization in our lakeside community. We share one half the offering collected at the fellowship each week with that organization. For the month of May, we've been supporting Tepwaha Centro Comunitario. The Tepwaha neighborhood is situated on a hillside above downtown Chapala. It is considered one of the poorest neighborhoods in the state of Jalisco. Their vision is to help a village to help itself, to create a place the poor of the village can go for counseling, guidance, and help of any kind. If you're not attending the fellowship in person, please donate to Share the Basket when you pay your pledge. Donate to Share the Basket separately or indicate what part of your donation is for Share the Basket. The offering will now be given and received. The offering will now be given and received. Oh, twice. a reading called Finite and Infinite. Our second reading is by James Carse from his book, Finite and Infinite Games. To be playful is not to be frivolous or trivial, or to act as if nothing of consequence will happen. On the contrary, when we are playful with one another, we relate as free persons, and the relationship is open to surprise. Everything that happens is of consequence, for seriousness is a dread of the unpredictable outcome of open possibility. To be serious is to press for a specified conclusion. To be playful is to allow for unlimited possibility.
So a couple weeks ago, we had a planning meeting after the service. We do these once a quarter where we attempt to plan the upcoming services a couple months, actually a quarter or so in advance. So we're working on, I don't know, all the way into September, maybe beyond. I'm looking at Devorah for confirmation there. But basically the idea is that we try to kind of fill out our calendar, our dance card, if you will, with presenters and topics and ideas well ahead so that people have time to work on those. And we also talk a little bit in these meetings about how things are going, if there are concerns that people have. And one of the things that got raised up that time at that particular meeting was some commentary about the use of this teleprompter in the back of the room. And I think most of you have seen that. Some of you have turned around and actually followed along as we sometimes read the scripted material that we present from, rather than using notes on the lectern here. And you're either looking down or you're looking at the camera, but the concern was you're not looking at the room. So I took that to heart, and rather than prepare a sermon that I wrote out, which is my usual style, I'm just working from notes today. And so this is a play. The theme today is play, so I'm playing around with, can I make this work? Especially in this space with this kind of critical crowd that I'm dealing with here. So we'll see. So a few months ago, I read a book called Blueprint by Nicholas Christakis, and he's a sociologist, and he was exploring a bunch of universal aspects of being human. And most of these were very positive things, among them play. And when I was reading the chapter on play, he made this sort of side comment mentioning the Baining people in New Guinea, this rather primitive tribe that is isolated in the mountains there, that has somehow managed to suppress play. They don't allow their children to play. They discourage any kind of playful activity. They are very Puritan kind of folks, hardworking, kind of dour, according to the anthropologists. The primary researcher who studied them in the early days, a man named Gregory Bateson, called them unstudyable. And in fact, he also uninteresting. And another anthropologist who was pursuing his PhD and planning to work up a thesis on this culture gave up after 4 years and went home and became a computer scientist. So maybe it is true that all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy, or at least uninteresting. But as I dug in a little deeper in this, it sounds like an interesting story, but is it true? Others have criticized some of this research as being of poor quality. Part of the issue is that the Baining people really don't like to be researched on. So they they'll run away and hide rather than talk to a researcher, and they keep a lot of their details secret. So definitely it is hard to figure out what they're really about. And so there is some question about whether they are really playful people. Maybe they just hide it from the researchers. But still, the whole story may be the exception that proves the rule, the sense that we, all of us, all humans, are playful people, at least as children, unless we get it kind of talked out of us. But what do I mean by play? I mean, play is one of those things that we sort of know when we see it. But in looking around for definitions, I found one that I rather like, and that is by philosopher Bernard Suits. And he says, to play a game is to voluntarily take on unnecessary obstacles for the sake of making possible the experience of struggling against them. And I think the point here, the key is that the word voluntary. To play means that you have a choice, that you are choosing to do these things. And Suits had a really good example, sort of one of those thought experiments. He said, imagine a person who is trying to get to the top of a mountain to get some kind of plant that grows up there to make a rare drug to cure cancer for his child. That is not really a game, that running up to or walking up to the top of the mountain. But on the other hand, if on the same trail there is a mountain climber who is going to the top of the mountain simply because it's there, I think is the quote, right? For him, that is, or her, that is a game. And the way you could tell is, suppose a guy in a helicopter comes along and waves down and say, you guys want to ride to the top? Well, the person that is chasing after looking to get that plant, the drug, is going to say, yeah, sure, anything that'll speed this up so I can get back down. On the other hand, the mountain climber is going to say, what do you think? I'm crazy? No, this is what I want to do, to climb this mountain. So there's a very strong distinction there about the motive and the choice. So one of the things I think the other interesting aspect is this question about obstacles, about taking on these activities that we would not otherwise have to do. And why would we do this? Why can't we just be normally lazy like I am? But part of it is that play gives us experience. I think this is why children love playing so much. It gives them experience. It gives us experience with the world, how the world works, how relationships with other people work, all those kinds of things. And the risk, though, is that if we are not allowed to play, it can lead to bad outcomes. The researcher and psychiatrist Stuart Brown has studied play for most of his career, and he founded the National Institute for Play, which this slide is from their website. He started studying play in 1966. He was an associate professor at the University of Texas in Austin. And in 1966, the Texas Tower mass murder occurred. It was the largest mass murder in the United States at that time. A young man, I think age 25, went up into the tower with guns. I didn't read all the details, and shot a whole lot of people. And so this was back in an era when people in the United States actually cared about mass killings. And so they actually organized a commission to study why this happened. What happened to this young man, this student at the school, to do this? And Stuart Brown was asked to be on this commission, and he studied the whole life of this young man. And what he found out was that his father, being a kind of a sadistic and overbearing father, prevented him from playing ever. And Stuart Brown went on to study other situations involving murders and also suicides. People in the Texas penitentiary system, murderers, and he found that a great many of them had what he called deficient play histories compared to other people. So play seems to be essential to human flourishing. And I don't know why I got this quote in here, but I think it fits. There's a George Bernard Shaw says, "We don't stop playing because we grow old. We grow old because we stop playing." And so I hope that many of us have already taken that to heart. But play is also more universal than just us humans. I mean, we love to see our pets play. Those of you who with cats probably, love playing around with cat toys, or maybe those laser pointers that cats love to chase, all that kind of thing. And us dog people, I love when our dog engages with another dog and then goes into that play bow kind of thing. And then they're off, one chasing the other, and then they switch roles, and the other one chases the first, and back and forth until they find something else to do or tire out. So play does seem to be universal. And here is a surprising example, this little video here, even among species.
So I'm going to take you through.
This is Stuart Brown, by the way, at a TED Talk.
Remarkable sequence. North of Churchill, Manitoba, in October and November, there's no ice on Hudson Bay, and this polar bear that you see is 1,200-pound male. He's wild and fairly hungry. And Norbert Rossing, a German photographer, is there on scene making a series of photos of these huskies who are tethered. And from out of stage left comes this wild male polar bear with a predatory gaze. Any of you have been to Africa or had a junkyard dog come after you, there is a fixed kind of predatory gaze that you know you're in trouble. But on the other side of that predatory gaze is a female husky in a play bow wagging her tail. And something very unusual happens. That fixed behavior, which is rigid and stereotyped and ends up with a meal, changes. And this polar bear stands over the husky, no claws extended, no fangs, taking a look, and they begin an incredible ballet. A play ballet. This is in nature. It overrides the carnivorous nature and what otherwise would have been a short fight to the death. And if you'll begin to look closely at the husky that's baring her throat to the polar bear, and look a little more closely, they're in an altered state. They're in a state of play. And it's that state that allows these two creatures to explore the possible. They are beginning to do something that neither would have done without the play signals. And it is a marvelous example of how a differential in power can be overridden by a process of nature that's within all of us.
Yeah, isn't that wild? Yeah, so to speak. So I want to invite you into a little bit of playful exploration this morning, if you are willing. And this is something that all of us can do, whether you're here in the room or on Zoom. And I want you to invite you to simply look at your hand, stretch out your fingers, and, looking at the back of the hand, notice the tendons that run down from the fingers, providing control and strength there. And if you turn over your hand, you may notice the muscles and fat there as as the hand, as you close your hand and open your hand, you can kind of see that kind of activity. And you may also notice the creases and the wrinkles in your hand. It's such an interesting and complicated, I'll just say, creation or evolution, the form of this amazing part of our bodies. And so now I invite you to make a shape with your hand, any kind of shape. Just notice how flexible your hand is. And then make another shape. Again, any shape at all, it doesn't really matter. And then make another, and make another. The hand is very creative. And now make shapes very fast, so fast that your mind cannot think ahead doing this sort of thing, so that you can't judge which shape is better than the next or all that sort of stuff. Just a lot of fast moving shapes. And now maybe just slow things down. Smooth and gentle, slow and easy, soft. And there. And so I want to ask, how was that for you? What playful? Of course, yeah. What feelings came up? Well, first off, did you even do it or watch other folks? Were you perhaps worried about looking silly? Could it have been a little bit risky? I mean, the question that might have come to your mind is, can I trust Matt? I mean, what next? What is he going to ask me to do after this thing? Or for others, it might have been, am I doing this right? Who's judging? I mean, I need rules for something like this. I mean, all he said is go fast and go slow. I need more rules. For some, it might have even been, where's the competition? How do I win? I think for many of us, it was simply a kind of a playful, pleasurable activity, something that brought joy. Back in the 80s or so, New York University professor James Carse wrote the book Finite and Infinite Games, and we heard a quote from that. But here is another quote that really helps define his concept of finite versus infinite in games. And he says there are at least two types of games, finite and infinite. A finite game is played for the purpose of winning, and an infinite game is for the purpose of continuing the play. Yes, I know our bird friends are playing around here in the top of the room. They may be more amusing than I am. So finite games, continuing this quote, are those instrumental activities from sports to politics to wars in which the participants obey rules, recognize boundaries, and announce winners and losers. On the other hand, the infinite game includes any authentic interaction from touching to culture that changes rules, plays with boundaries, and exists solely for the purpose of continuing the game. So finite games are about rules and innings, about keeping score, winning and losing. You know, we think about war, but even war is a kind of a finite game with rules that nations are reluctant to violate. Even cartel activity, violence tends to have its own strange rules. And yet, infinite games seem to be about play for its own sake, about relating with other people that you are playing with, if you are playing with other people, or relating with yourself perhaps. But a big part of the goal is for the activity to continue as long as everyone is interested, and perhaps even if in that case not switching out different people at different times perhaps. It's about surprise and possibility. It's about joy. So an example of the distinction here for me came a few weeks ago when one of you, who shall remain nameless, persuaded me to try out pickleball for the first time. So I went down to Mel's on a Monday afternoon. That's when they have beginners classes in pickleball there, and met my friend and joined 3 other people, and we began to be taught a bit about this game, and we actually played a couple of short games as well as simply, learning, dinking the ball around, doing that sort of thing. And I have never played racket sports. I suck at ping pong. This kind of paddle stuff is not my thing, and yet I do have to say I understand now why pickleball is such a phenomenon, because it is fairly easy to pick up, at least in the basics, and begin to have fun. But what I noticed is that when we were just playing around, when we were just sort of dinking the ball back and forth across the net, when the goal, if there was one, seemed to be to sort of like, how long can we keep the ball in play, there was a kind of fun and ease and joyfulness about that activity, which was different when we went into actually playing a game and there was sort of this competitive stuff going on. And for me, and maybe it's just because I'm not a big competitive kind of guy, I noticed my mind turning over all these things about, oh, I'm screwing up again. Oh, I missed another time. Oh, I don't want to say I'm sorry once again to my partner in this game. Just kind of listening to the numbers of the scores go by, whether we were ahead, and then, and I was feeling like, well, it's not about me, it's about him or her, or when we were behind, and there was this sort of ranking in my mind of saying that one's the best player, and that one's the second best, and this one is the worst, and where am I? And there was a lot of like this kind of judgy kind of stuff going on. And so that was the difference, I thought. It was, I struggled with the competitiveness. But play doesn't have to always be about sports or competing with another person or anything like that. We could talk about play in respect to art, to craft, music, all those kinds of creative activities. I mean, why do we use the words like play the piano? Although I guess Steely Dan talking about working the saxophone, so maybe that's different. But there is a creative, playful, discovering, joyful, surprising kind of aspect to doing music, doing crafts, doing art, all those kinds of things. And yet, what happens when play becomes work? So let me give you an example. Back when I was in seminary, I studied at Starr King School for the Ministry in Berkeley, California. And in one of our classrooms, our major classroom, was this fireplace. We called it the fireside room. And above the fireplace was a window, which behind the window was the smokestack or the flue for the fireplace. So it was kind of ugly. And I at some point suggested, wouldn't it be cool if we had a stained glass piece up there? And this being a seminary, we kind of got all kind of discussion going, and then all, into the night and all that stuff. And we ended up with a kind of small group of folks who were interested in doing stained glass, and we decided to have a competition. And so we had this design competition, and 2 designs were really emerged strong. And this being a seminary, they didn't want to choose and make somebody feel bad. So they asked us if we could do both designs. And so one of the designs was rather fun to do. That's the one that was just up there. If you could pop that back up again, it would probably be nice. It had some fairly complicated glass cuts, big pieces. It was challenging in its own way, but it wasn't a whole lot of pieces. And I loved how it turned out. The other one was kind of a design of like the chalice logo that many of you are familiar with Unitarian Universalism. And it had a phenomenal number of pieces, well over 100 pieces. And this was getting close to the end of the semester, and all of the folks in this little craft group dropped out, and I felt the pressure to complete this piece and try to get it done by the end of the semester. And so there was this time pressure, and there was a certain amount of money pressure, and it became not fun. It was work. Now I knew what doing stuff on commission felt like, even though I wasn't getting paid. It didn't have that sort of joyful feeling that a lot of craft work would otherwise. So we've talked about play, in the physical realm and creative craft realm, but also I think there is the possibility of an internal kind of play, of playing with our minds. And by this, I'm just talking about daydreaming. And daydreaming, really in our Western culture, has long been seen as a waste of time. That, it's something that we were kind of discouraged from in school, in grade school or whatever, as a waste of time. And yet it can be a form of play to just let our minds wander. I mean, maybe you remember, I remember fondly, laying out on a summer's day, in the grass in the backyard, looking up at the clouds, making animal shapes out of the clouds and all that kind of stuff, and just sort of totally relaxed, no worries in the world, just daydreaming away. And there is some evidence that good daydreaming, actually there's a term for it, positive, constructive daydreaming, according to the psychologists, can lead to happiness and also increase our creativity. They've done studies where people take on a task and then they're invited to go off and daydream for a while, come back to the task, and they are oftentimes more creative. But the mind needs a little bit of control. We have to stay on top of things because oftentimes our minds will go to negative places. We might begin to stress out about all the things that we have to do in the next few days before we travel or before we do whatever. Or we may return to traumatic thoughts in our past and ruminate over things that we wish had come out different. All kinds of negative feelings can come up. And so you know where this is going. I want to invite you into a kind of meditation where we begin to kind of try to direct our minds to draw them away from the negative thoughts that may come up, to notice that, and then direct them in a different direction. So here's the deal about meditation. A whole lot of meditation is about really controlling the mind, maybe even emptying the mind. We either focus on some specific object of meditation. It might be, meditating on a flame or some simple object, a rock, or just trying to empty the mind completely, not having any thoughts, that sort of thing. However, this particular meditation, we're going to actually allow our mind to think of stuff. In general, this is oftentimes called open awareness meditation, although that's a very loose term. But the sense is that we are observing our mind as it's thinking. So if you're willing to do a little bit of meditation, I invite you to get comfortable in your chairs or wherever you are, and close your eyes or soften your gaze, however you are more comfortable with that. And let's just start by taking 2 deep breaths. Just take a deep inward breath and let it out. And another deep inward breath and let it out. And now just notice the weight of your body on the chair or the bed or the floor, wherever you are. Just note the weight, note the contact of your rear, your feet, whatever is making contact, feeling the gravity into the earth. And now let's turn our attention to the sounds around us. Just notice those sounds. Notice how they come, and they may be around for a while and go away. No need to try to label or identify the sounds. Just kind of notice them as they happen. Even if there's a sound that's continuous, you may notice how it comes to your attention and then you sort of forget about it, maybe turning to other sounds. And now begin to notice the thoughts that come up in your mind. Whatever that is, this is boring, why do we have to do this? Wow, that thing again? Just notice whatever thoughts come up. One way you might imagine the thoughts as they arise and then stay around and dissipate is imagine you're looking at a stream or a river and objects, the thoughts, just drift gently down the river. There's a leaf drifting down the river. Now a stick. Maybe now a couple in a boat. These thoughts show up in the distance, come by, and disappear in the other direction. There may be space between the thoughts, or maybe not. Now, occasionally your mind may take you off on an extended journey, lots and lots of thoughts, completely away from this activity, and then at some point you realize, oh, wait a minute, I was supposed to be noticing these thoughts, and you can return. There's no judgment here. It happens to all of us. And just return to noticing the thoughts as they arise and dissipate. We'll do this for a couple more minutes. And so now let us come back into this space and this time, being together again. And so this is it. This life we live, this game of life, it is an infinite game. The rules of living are flexible. No winning, no losing. Sure, maybe the clock runs out at death, or maybe it doesn't. But perhaps living well is letting the infinite game continue, letting it continue for those that follow behind us. And so if we are to play with our lives, to live in a joyful state, perhaps daydreaming, perhaps being creative, perhaps night dreaming, imagining living toward those dreams, or maybe not, letting them go, we play along with life, an infinite game, with no one keeping score. So I want to finish with Tony Hoagland, one of my favorite poets. I think he sometimes nails it a bit close to my own life, even as he looks back on his own life in this poem, a life perhaps questionably lived. And he says, I can almost hear the future whisper to the past. It says, this is not a test, and everybody passes. And I love that is such a universalist idea, that this is not a test, and everybody, no exceptions, passes. May it be so. Our closing hymn is number 3. Why do we care about the numbers anyway? Well, you might have a hymnal if you're not here. Let It Be a Dance. It's Let It Be a Dance. I'm checking in with Michael. We don't have anybody song leading today, unless you're doing it. No. and so there are several of you who have good, strong voices. Sing it out loud. Play with it. Enjoy the what? And dance. And dance if you. Yeah. All right. Please rise in body or spirit as you can and join us in singing. Track somehow. We had some few little tracking problems with music versus the words, but we kind of improv'd or riffed on that in an adequately strange way. It made it more fun, yeah. And we all won, yeah. So let us live our lives rich in play, never too serious, right? Never insisting on some certain outcome, like the song has to be right. Always loose, we were free, open in our relationships and our connections to whatever might come. To be playful is to be open to the infinite possibility of life, to be open to what life offers rather than what we might demand. In our play, may we find freedom, surprise, and ultimately joy.
Let us extinguish our chalice with these words which we read together. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we keep in our hearts and share with all the world.
Hello. So to complete the service, I'm going to play a piece that definitely has play associated with it. And those of you at the concert the past 2 days will know that we played this as an encore, which is the hoedown from Rodeo by Aaron Copland, but this is a slightly different version. All right, I don't know how many of you remember the kind of progressive rock group from the 70s, Emerson, Lake and Palmer. Well, they did a version of this, and I thought it would be kind of cool to try and recreate it as best as I could in the limited time available. So here goes. Hoedown by Aaron Copland, courtesy of Emerson, Lake and Palmer.
Our worship is over. Our service begins. Go in peace and with the purpose.